Okay, yesterday we were learning about bikes, tricycles, Scrabble sets. Okay, now you have like this. You have building blocks. So you have the old-fashioned, simple building blocks. You have just a piece of wood. Kids would pile up one piece of wood on the next. That's not an issue on Shabbos, because that's not doing anything. When you have interlinking pieces, like Legos, Tinker Toys, electric set, what was it called nowadays? Yeah. All those things are, so there's a big argument even in contemporary poskim, are you allowed to play with Legos and Shabbos? Because even though it's not a permanent construction, obviously, but when you make things with Legos, it holds firmly. And therefore it's still rabbinic building, so to speak. So many opinions say you're not allowed to play with Legos on Shabbos. Other people say, yeah, it's made, you could. So it's a big argument if you could. Most people say you can't. 1 second. But the bottom line of it is, if you're allowed to play with Legos on Shabbos, then they're not Muktza. If you're not allowed to play with Legos on Shabbos, then they are Muktza. Because it depends on whether you're allowed to play it or not. What?
You have these Legos that people build, I have in my house a cyber shop. It's like made out of 350 steps. And after they build that, they don't take it apart. Seen in the doctor's offices.
That's even a bigger question.
Everyone agrees?
Yeah, well, then I don't see how anybody could say you're allowed to. If you're building it with the intent that it should last, I mean, then for sure it's not something that you could do. Oh, we're coming to that right now, jigsaw puzzles. Now, doing puzzles on Shabbos, so you have like this, there's some baby puzzles, really little kids, it's a block with 4 things in it, and your big pieces, you just put it down. Okay, that's not an issue. When you're talking about a 500-piece puzzle, 1,000-piece puzzle, so that for sure you're not allowed to do on Shabbos because that's writing. It's actually writing and forming a picture. Forming a picture on Shabbos would be forbidden. So therefore, according to that, then puzzles, the whole box of puzzles would be Muktza on Shabbos because you're not allowed to do puzzles on Shabbos. So therefore, it would be Keli Shemalachta Le'Isr, again, that you can move it if you need the place or if you want to do something permissible with it. Another interesting argument in Shulchan Aruch, it's brought on Mamish in Shulchan Aruch, are you allowed to play ball on Shabbos? Now, ball is a general word. Baseball, basketball, football, soccer, a lot of ping pong, a lot of those things. Are you allowed to play ball on Shabbos? So first, now, Rabbi Shulchan Aruch brings on 2 opinions, and he writes that the minhag ha'olam is to be lenient that you do play ball on Shabbos. So bottom line, that you could play ball on Shabbos. But nevertheless, it says it's not something that should be done. The Ksesa Shulchan, Rabbi Avram Chaim Noah brings down that about playing ball on Shabbos, he quotes a Yerushalmi that says there was a very large neighborhood in Yerushalayim that was destroyed because they played ball on Shabbos. There was a native, because Yerushalayim had a native. But nevertheless, it says it was destroyed because they played ball on Shabbos. So is playing ball the right thing to do on Shabbos? It's not. Is it forbidden? No, it's not. But the difference is, then the bat, ball, gloves wouldn't be Muktza on Shabbos, because technically you're allowed to play with them on Shabbos. You don't have to stop kids playing ball on Shabbos. Or you don't have to stop adults too. But I'm just saying it's not in the proper spirit of Shabbos. But to give you an example though, there are issues. To play soccer on grass would be forbidden. Soccer on cement, like in this parking lot, halachically wouldn't be forbidden. But to play soccer on grass would be halachically forbidden. Why? Because when you kick a ball on grass, so you're ripping out grass. Inevitably, even though you don't want to, you're not intended not to rip out grass, but if you're playing soccer and you're kicking the ball and it's going, with the way people kick the ball, inevitably, as Psikh like we learned, inevitably you're going to be ripping out grass on Shabbos, which is the biblical malacha of kaitzer, of harvesting and reaping. So then you wouldn't be allowed to play soccer. Or another thing, if you're playing soccer on dirt, it's another problem, because then when you kick the ball, you're creating holes in the ground. That is the malacha of plowing. Plowing and the malacha of plowing is what's plowing. You make holes in the ground. So anytime you make holes in the ground, first I give you an example. Let's say you have a heavy table on that you want to schlep. It's in your backyard on dirt, not on grass. It's on dirt, and you want to schlep it. You don't want. It's too heavy to pick up, so you don't want to. You just want to pull it on the dirt. So over there you're not allowed to, because inevitably you're going to make holes in the ground. One second, even though you don't want to, but it's a psikresh, it's for sure going to happen. But I'm going to take questions in a second. But let's say to wheel a wheelchair over earth would be allowed. Halacha says, because you're not making holes. All you're doing is flattening it more. You're not making holes. On the contrary, you're not making holes. What did you want? Kohen. No. Huh? Yeah.
Playing on the grass on Shabbat, was it the category of asik?
Not misasik. It's Eina Miskaven, but it's psikresha.
Mitkaven?
Eina Miskaven, your intent is not to rip out grass, but it's for sure going to happen.
So it's the Rabbanon.
It has nothing to do with playing ball. It has to do with nothing malacha.
So it's the Rabbanon.
No, if it's psikresha, that means it's miskaven, and therefore it's what's in Atayra. If psikresha means it's for sure going to happen. So then it's not unintentional anymore. Once it's for sure going to happen, you can't say I don't intend it to happen. It's for sure going to happen.
You can't walk on grass either.
You could walk on grass. You're not ripping it out. It's not like kicking. When you're running on grass, kicking the grass, the ball. So inevitably you're going to be kicking the grass. Yeah.
So you're not allowed to walk on the beach on Shabbat?
To walk on the beach if there's no swimmers, you mean? Huh?
You're making holes by law.
You're not making holes. You're pushing it down. It's like a wheelchair. You're pushing it down. You're not making holes.
So you can't play on sand then?
Sand, play on sand, it depends. You might not be allowed to. But walking on sand is not an issue. B'chla, one second. There's another problem. Playing with sand. Again, walking on sand is not a problem. But playing sand is muktza. We'll learn later, sand is total muktza. You can't move it for any reason whatsoever. The only time you can move, if you designate sand, let's say you have a sandbox, let's say there's a park near your house and has a sandbox in it, right? So that sand has been designated to play with. So then it's not muktzah anymore. But plain sand you find on the beach is muktzah, so you can't play with it. Not only that, even in a playground, even then you can't wet the sand, because then there's the malacha of lush. You're kneading the dough, like putting flour and water together, so you're like kneading. Yeah.
What if you play soccer on artificial grass or play miniature golf on artificial grass?
If it's artificial grass, it wouldn't be a problem. What?
A lot of soccer players, they sweat and they speak. So, on the grass. So, what's the meaning?
There's nothing to do with playing soccer. Many people walk in the street, they also spit. You can't spit on grass on Shabbos because you're watering the grass. Even though it's very minimal, you're still watering the grass. It's all common sense. If you think about it, that's what it is. I mean, it's, Okay, weiter. Okay, balls we said are not muktzah, kiddush malach then. Okay, now, any toy that makes noise, like a rattle, kids play with rattles or whistles or things like that. See, there's a din, it's midrabanan, but it's called mashmiya kol. You're not allowed to make noises on Shabbos because you might come to make musical instruments. So therefore, that's rabbinically forbidden. So if it's rabbinically forbidden, then those things would be muks on Shabbos, whistles. But what happens, many times you have a toy. A toy is a toy, but it can wind up, and then it will start playing music or dancing, whatever. The kids have these dolls or toys, whatever that you wind it up, and then it would do certain things. So obviously, one second, on Shabbos you're not allowed to wind it up, because now you're making it work, basically, to get makah b'patish. But even though the toy is made to do that, it's still not muktza. Why? Because the bottom line is you can play with it without winding. It's still a doll. It's still a toy. You can play with it. You don't necessarily have to wind it up. So you're not allowed to wind it up. But the fact that you can play with it in a kosher way, so it's not muktza. Yeah.
Are you allowed to whistle with your fingers?
Shulchan Aruch says you could.
Do what? What was the question?
Whistle with your...
You could or you couldn't?
Could.
You could? Yeah, you could.
That's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. Alter Rebbe brings it down. Like he says, whistling like birds. Anyway, that you could do.
So for sure without your fingers?
What?
For sure without using your hands?
Yeah. I mean, B'chlal, today is a different world. But when we were growing up, in the olden days, as my kids would say, in the olden days when we were young, whistling was a very goyish thing to do. They would say the shkotzim whistle. You know, people b'chlal, whistling was not a Jewish thing to do. So generally speaking, not by whistling for singing and all that, just whistling, depends what type of whistling you're doing. So b'chlal, but halachically it's not an issue.
So what was the story with Rabbi Yosef?
Yeah, no.
There was such a thing?
There was a whole story years ago that the Rebbe would many times by Fabring and tell Abasera, right, Mayor Abasera, that he should, the Rebbe pointed with his fingers that he should whistle. He was known as the Rebbe's whistler. He would whistle a lot. And one time they put in a picture in the Allgemeine Journal, the Yiddish paper, they put a picture of the Rebbe doing that, like the Rebbe was whistling. So it was an Allgemeine Journal many years ago. I think I was still a bacher then probably. Or maybe married, or I don't remember. But anyway, it was a long time ago. And we became a whole fight amongst the Chassidim. You put in such a picture, you don't put in such a picture. Is it proper that the Rebbe is whistling? Is it proper to put in a picture? Not a proper. The whole fight started. And so the next Habreng, the Rebbe said that there's a beferish pasuk in Tanakh about David HaMelech. It's one of the Haftarahs. Mefazer, Mecharker, whatever. Over there, the pasuk says over there, David HaMelech was whistling. It was when they were bringing the Aron back to Yerushalayim. So he says he was whistling. So the Rebbe said, it says clearly in Torah that David HaMelech whistled. What are you embarrassed about the person whistling? In Torah it says David HaMelech whistled. So anyway. Okay, next thing is like this. Games, again, that you're allowed to play on Shabbos. For instance, chess, checkers. We said nowadays chess you can play on Shabbos. In the Middle Ages you couldn't because they would write down the moves. But chess, checkers, board games is like this. Any board game that you keep score, we learned already you're not allowed to play on Shabbos because we're afraid, like Scrabble or all those games, you might keep score. Any thing that has to do with buying and selling, we learned, is not allowed on Shabbos. Things that, I don't know, whatever, anything that makes noise, whatever, that would not be allowed on Shabbos. Otherwise, technically, backgammon, the shakespeare, what do they call it, the various different board games, rummy cube, and now sometimes you might have a problem because if it's, like we said about the deluxe Scrabble yesterday, that there's grooves, and you put letters in them, so then it's considered writing. That's considered writing. So then any game that you have those things and you have to put letters into grooves, so those games you can't play on Shabbos either, because then you're writing. But then, But then, if you're not allowed to play it, it becomes Muktza. That you can move Terech Gufi Mekaymer. But otherwise, it wouldn't be Muktza.
Because just a shape that you're putting in the group.
Shafer?
Shape.
Shape is writing. There's no difference between a shape and a
It's
letter.
not a picture, just
A shape is a shape.
writing.
Every letter is a shape.
Well, when that spells out a word.
No, it doesn't have to spell out a word.
No, it has a message.
It's not the, it's Ksiva is Ksiva. Ksiva is Ksiva. But
What about a game where you might select, like food or something like that?
say louder, please.
What about a game where you have to select, like food? Can you play a game like that?
Yeah, because what you're selecting is good from the bad.
Okay.
You know, you can select good from bad. You can't select bad from good. But if you're playing a game where you have to select a card, let's say, or something like that, so the bottom line is then you're selecting the good from the bad for immediate use. You want it right away. So again, that wouldn't be an issue.